We're live from the CNN News 18 primetime studio, brought to you by Schneider Electric Smart Home Solutions. Viewers, adversity is the mother of reinvention. In 1991, hollowed out by years of protectionism, with forex barely enough to cover 2 weeks of imports, forced to hypothecate its gold to secure a loan from the IMF, India launched sweeping reforms to liberalize its economy. Narasimha Rao, Dr. Manmohan Singh, N.K. Singh and Montek Ahluwalia laid the foundations for decades of growth. Today, as India stands at another crossroads and looks to pull ahead of the ill winds blowing in from the west, Prime Minister Modi has secured his reform legacy virtually by carrying out the biggest tax reset since 1991. You may not need reminding, but the GST reset was promised by the Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech just last month. But unlike in 1991, this is a reform from a place of strength, not desperation. The key objective of this confidence-driven transformation is to turbocharge the economy by boosting savings and consumption. Here's what we know. Only 2 GST tax slabs now for most items, 5% and 18%. GST Council has done away with 12 and 28% GST tax slabs. 40% tax on sin goods, helicopters, yachts are under this category. No GST on life and health insurance premiums. New GST tax regime is to kick in from September 22, which is the first day of Navratras. The big GST Council decisions means that these 2 rates unanimously have been approved. And the new GST rates are to kick in, as I told you, from the first day of Navratras. Compensation cess will continue till October 31st, after which, viewers, it goes. And then even items sold under the sin goods category will become cheaper, like large sedans and so on and so forth. The tax incidence on tobacco and pan masala will continue. Tobacco and pan masala will be in the 40% slab. Now, viewers, these are some of the overviews. The reason the GST is being flagged as the most consequential reform in decades is because it minimizes disincentives to production and consumption by taking the hammer to tax arbitrariness. Some of which was so outlandish that it spawned memes. Let's take the famed popcorn example. You know, viewers, that loose popcorn was 5%, packaged popcorn was 18%, caramelized popcorn went into another bracket. So viewers, it was nightmarish, and that was just one of the examples. That's all gone now. All popcorn, caramelized, salted, loose, packed, pre-packaged, whatever you want to say, is now under 5%. The PM has hailed the reform. He says, quote, reforms aimed at the ease of living for the common man. The reforms focus on strengthening the economy. Glad to see that Council collectively agreed to proposals. Common man, farmers, MSMEs, middle class to be benefited. These reforms to ensure ease of doing business for all. Now, while, viewers, Prime Minister Modi is promising big things for all of us, critics warn of short-term shocks and fiscal risks. And therefore, viewers, today, we need to ask whether the GST reform will transform India. That is the biggest question. Will Modi's reform to transform India? And let's open this up, because we have interesting questions to be put to our panelists today. We've got a great panel. Let's open it up. Let's bring on the panel. There we have it. And I would like to begin with Suhail Seth, who's an entrepreneur, viewers, and somebody who obviously will face the first impact, because he is the entrepreneur here. Now, viewers, let's ask the basic question. And Suhail said, look, this is a reform that was much needed. Many people have said that this could have come in earlier, but we'll come to that. Does the GST reset cement, first of all, Prime Minister Modi's place as a reformer and transformer of the India growth story? Because the jury has been out on that one. Many people have said that when he came in, he promised to take government out of business. His motto was less government, more governance. Many people say that he didn't take some of those sweeping reforms that he should have, and therefore was not seen to be the reformer that he suggested he was. So I want to ask you, is that now course corrected?
I think Narendra Modi, when he took over, he made 3 promises. Number 1, there would be minimum government and maximum governance. Rahul, I advise chairmen and CEOs of companies across the country, and all of them will tell you that they don't need to come to Delhi to get things done. A policy is laid out, and within that policy, if you fit the bill, you do your work. If you don't, you don't. Number 2, he said that there would be ease of business, which we are seeing. Number 3, on Republic Day this year, August 15, 2025, he said the GST would be reformed and transformed, and that has happened in 20 days. The point I'm making is that today Indian industry cannot say or cannot whine anymore saying, oh my God, we are in trouble because of Trump. If you remember, Rahul, it was in your program on the day Trump announced the tariffs that I said India and Indians have the capability of looking at opportunities in any adversity. Today, the government has created an enabling mechanism, a mechanism where Indian businesses can work towards garnering greater market share amongst Indian consumers. A. B. I also said on your program that it's time that government eases out of business and that Indian industry takes it upon itself to expand. Mukesh Ambani on August 29, 2025, in his AGM speech said, it's time for Jio to go abroad. More and more Indian companies are now traversing the world, and that augurs well. See, we ultimately have to build global brands. There is no shying away. Earlier, if you remember, under the Congress regime, Indira Gandhi's time onwards, up until Narasimha Rao, we were operating in a license Raj. Rahul, we had 2 cars and 2 motorcycle oblique scooters to choose from. That India is over. And Narendra Modi has established himself as the person who gets things done. He did it as Chief Minister in Gujarat. He's doing it as Prime Minister of India today.
He's a doer. That's what Suhail Seth is saying. He's a doer. He walks the talk. Okay, let me bring in Dipanshu Mohan. Wears many hats. He's part of Jindal University, visiting professor and dean. He's also someone who's associated with LSE and Oxford University, so he has some credentials to speak of. Let me ask you, will Indian industry stop hedging after this? There has been a problem. Many people have said that Indian industry hasn't invested. The private investment has been lagging. So after this, will that incentive be created now for them to add to the India growth story substantially, creating jobs and adding GDP and job opportunities? Dipanshu Mohan.
Thank you, Rahul, for having me here. Let me take this opportunity first to clarify a few things. This is a subject of my academic work, and I want the viewers to understand that a rationalization of an indirect tax doesn't guarantee price deductions on their own. We are assuming that prices remain status quo and that over time, certain prices would reduce because there is lesser burden of the indirect tax. Understandably so, but market forces doesn't work like that. We have a lot of reorientation of what we call as an elastic goods, where prices change and may not be effectively passed on to consumers. I can give you one simple example. Many MSMEs, one big segment of the economy, have been struggling since 2016. I've been working with MSMEs from states within Haryana, Punjab. I can't tell you how much of debt, credit, and issues that these MSMEs have been facing. My sense is that the rationalization will help, maybe perhaps enable them to keep prices status quo so that they can increase, in some cases, more profitability, and that is required. MSMEs earn and need to earn more revenue. There are two other major issues which I feel are not being discussed at all. I've been following the news all day, and I think that needs to be perspective. So your show is important in putting that. First, India's household savings have slipped to a new low, to 18.1% of the GDP in last year. This has come down from 34% of the GDP, which means that more and more Indians are saving less and they're using credit to make purchases. And this is the middle class that we're talking about. So the middle class in India is not like the middle class in other countries. You have people earning 5 lakh and 30 lakh, and they're not clubbed into what we define as the broader middle class. So the saving situation is not good. The MSME position is not good, which is where a lot of the price reductions right now will help consumer durables. Third, household debt. More and more people are spending money on debt expenditure. So if I have more disposable income now, if I am spending less on that butter or ghee, whatever that I'm buying, it's not as if I'm spending that money to either invest or increase demand or increase production. I would rather use that 6 or 10 rupees to maybe pay my debt, which has been accruing. This government has done absolutely nothing for the middle class. I must confess, I've been saying this for now 4 budgets consecutively. They have been pro-business. They have been pro-rich industrial classes.
Right.
They've hoped that they privately invest more capital, and that has not happened. I've not seen private investment kickstart. So one of the things which is important is it's good that their attention is finally turning to the middle classes. My sense is that the political economy of this GST rationalization and the timing of it is closer to the Bihar election. It's an entirely and predominantly rural state. A lot of the benefits of this rationalization will benefit rural consumption demand, but I don't think that something like this is going to fundamentally structure. We shouldn't even use.
So no, hang on. Just let's stop it there. One second. So you're basically saying that this is a cynical exercise at winning votes. Okay, let's leave it at that once. Let me come back to your logic. Now, I want to ask you. I'm not an economist. How did this debt accumulate among MSMEs, etc.? How did this? You use this term that the MSMEs will not pass on the benefits of all of this. But why wouldn't they? After all, they're in trouble because there is no consumption happening. So if they keep prices up, there will still be no consumption. They'll be stuck where they are.
No, it doesn't work like that, Rahul.
Why wouldn't it work like that? That's logic.
No. So I'm explaining, allow me to explain.
The only way they can now...
A lot of the products where you've seen the GST rationalization...
No, one second. This is a chicken and egg question. Hang on. I just want to ask you, what came first? What came first? Yeah. The debt or the lack of demand?
So, lack of demand is something which happens when people are not able to spend.
So I'm asking you, what came first? You said to me that MSME, look, viewers, I like to pick on contradictions because it makes things exciting. So I just want to ask you, sir, because your logic is not linking up here. You say MSMEs have a problem. They're in debt and so on and so forth. They're not making profits. So the moment this thing hits them, they're not going to pass on the benefits.
Not necessarily is what I said.
Yeah, they won't lower prices.
It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, they don't. Rationalization of GST slabs doesn't guarantee price decreases. That's exactly your phrase, right?
Yes.
So, my point is, this is a zero-sum game. If they keep prices up there, where they are, where no one is buying their goods in the first place, they're not going to be able to do business to get out of the problem they're in. So something has to give.
So if you are asking what needs to give, focus on tax credits for the MSMEs. This
Oh,
government
gosh.
in the pandemic.
Okay, so
This
viewers,
government in the
viewers,
pandemic.
there are two ways of
Rahul,
skinning the cat.
you have to
There are
allow
two.
me to
No, no, I'm
finish.
sorry. There are two
You have
ways of
allowed-
skinning the cat. Either you
I'm not skinning
incentivize the
cat.
consumer,
See, I don't argue things one way or the other. I just look at facts and I have facts.
I'm giving
to
you a
give
bunch of
perspective.
facts. You haven't been able to. Now, you've changed the goalpost. You said, no, to do that, you've got to now give the MSMEs a bunch of tax
if you
breaks.
want MSMEs to produce more, you need to allow
hang
the
on.
industry to get more
Why
credit.
would they want to produce more when people are not taking what they're already producing?
So you have to look at their incomes, and to get more incomes.
So to get more incomes, people are being given not only a tax break.
There are three issues for
Okay,
viewers
so
to
hang on. Then
understand.
how does that explain the jump in productivity that led to a 7.8% growth in this fiscal? Explain to me.
7.8% growth, and the structural decomposition of that growth is not entirely happening as a result of
It is also happening. I'm not saying entirely. I never use that word. It is also happening because someone is producing.
No. So nobody is saying that you're not producing anything.
So viewers, if people are producing and your economy is rising, that means someone is buying. It doesn't work. It's not a one-way street that you keep producing goods.
You must have,
no one takes them.
You must have in your show heard the phrase K-shaped recovery.
No,
the word K-shaped recovery tells that there is a huge tranche.
See, I'm talking common sense here. Why won't you pass on the benefits when you know that by doing so, people will buy more of your goods, they will be able to afford them, and you will be producing more volume and therefore pulling yourself out of the problem that you find yourself in. Anyhow, viewers, I don't want to get stuck here. Let me bring in Nalin Kohli for a moment. Nalin Kohli, 3 points were made. Dipanshu Mohan says, it's not certain that these MSMEs and other manufacturing units which are on the smaller scale, etc., will actually pass on the benefits and prices will correct lower and people will therefore be able to afford. So first respond to that, because that suggests that there's something completely wrong, that this particular GST cut is superfluous. It will have no impact.
Well, it's a point of view. I don't agree with it. I think it's a cynical point of view. Anyway, in a democracy, everyone's entitled to their point of view. Let me give a contrarian point of view. And let's look at it. I'm not an economist, but perhaps Rahul. I've been 30 years, 35 years associated with the party. I've been in the media. So, I've seen many things from the late 80s, 90s, 2000, the decade of 2010, and now we are in 2025. So let's start from the saving rate. Yes, the saving rate was very, very high in the 80s and 90s, but you didn't have any consumption. You didn't have a choice of consumption. So you couldn't have a consumption-driven GDP. And if you go even backwards to the 50s and 60s, you had a very derogatory term called the Hindu growth rate, which basically said that you didn't grow because there was really nothing to grow about. You didn't produce anything. So there's been a whole progress from a planned economy to an open economy over a 70, 80-year period. Let's now really come back to, say, 2014. In 2014, I can speak decade by decade, but in 2014, you have a situation where the country is broadly depressed. India is seen as a failing or flagging economy. And you have a downgrade 20 years ago, which has now finally been upgraded by S&P. Now, these institutions that upgrade economies, they don't do it based without a proper assessment. I mean, the downgrade has lasted 20 years for it to change. India is considered a bright spot. I don't know. I read global papers and I find everyone talks about India as a bright spot. India is the center of this entire global thing of contributing to the global economy, and I hear a pessimistic view on television. So either someone is researching on data that is not correct, or alternatively is not reading the data correct, because somewhere this is not matching up. When GST came, there were a lot of problems, huge problems. 50,000 crores seemed to be a big target. 100,000 crores if we hit seemed to be that, it'll be a big thing. Today we are collecting 200,000 crores a month, about 22, 23 lakh crores of GST collection. If the collection wasn't robust, the states wouldn't be on board, because GST is an exercise and a mechanism that has the full involvement of the states. The states wouldn't be on board if they did not see the benefit of what's happening. I mean, we see the politics every day between BJP and non-BJP states. But in the GST Council, that work seemed to convince everybody that something is right.
That's the
now
point.
let's come to the next issue. That this may not be passed on to the consumer. In an information age, how will somebody survive that? It takes a minute for someone to tag a company big boss on the social media. It takes 5 minutes to tag the whole GST mechanism. Then why am I not getting the benefit?
And it has happened.
And consumers, as also customers, they are very, very clear. They don't accept a bad served food coming in delivery or a product not right. You mean to say that they are going to ignore something as big as GST? Prime Minister, I think the big story here is that Prime Minister Modi on 15th of August announces something that we've achieved in about 20 days. It's a huge thing. We should be celebrating that. We should be talking about something that is just about a consumption period that comes in Diwali. And Diwali, Dhanteras, Diwali, is a big time for the Indian economy. As weddings in India also contribute to the economy, as tourism does, all sectors are doing pretty well. I mean, you don't have reservations in hotels available nowadays, right up to March. So I don't understand where this pessimism is coming. And let me come to the younger generation. We are in our 50s, Rahul, but let's talk to someone in their 20s. A lot of them don't carry cash in their pocket as we are used to carrying 5,000 or 4,000 or 3,000 because we grew up carrying cash and not credit cards. But today the world is connected, so they do everything on credit cards. They do everything on all your UPI and things like that. The world is changing. Indian economy has changed also. It has moved to a consumption-driven economy, and you don't run it down so easily. So according to me, that's a point of view. I don't agree with it because
I think the
it's
most
overly,
robust argument
out
that
of
has
place
been
at the
given
moment.
here is that the states have tacked on, and there was this almost unilateral consensus. There wasn't there, and let me bring in Mr. Iyer Mitra. Iyer Mitra, we've had Dipanshu Mohan who's come out and said that, look, first of all, household savings are the lowest, so householders will first pay off their debt rather than use that money to shop, etc., etc. But even paying off debt at some level spurs some amount of economic activity. I'm sure everyone would agree, because it has a domino effect.
Just one thing, sorry, I must interrupt,
No.
and Abhijit, forgive me for that for a moment. Sorry, just for one sentence on debt. House loans have gone up enormously. That's a capital investment. Of course, debt has gone up. It will go up. Expansion in industry is taking place because your capacity is increasing. Of course, it leads to debt, as in infrastructure. So debt per se is not bad. It's the non-serviceability of debt which is a serious problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
So that's what Dipanshu Mohan is suggesting, that because there has been non-serviceability of debt, the first thing that will be done, that people will save up and basically service that debt. How do you see this logic squaring up, Abhijit Iyer Mitra?
Look, when you go into debt, you've got set repayments. You think people would have taken debt without, figuring out how much they can repay? This is what we were talking about. Is it a bad debt or is it going to be a good debt? That's very important. On the other hand, you have a fixed propensity of consumption. But still, there is a fundamentally distorted market out here. Market distortion is something we have still not brought down, which means the propensity to consume can increase very, very significantly if there was actually a price point correlation. Why is it that things are so much more affordable in, say, Bangkok, when it is a much richer country? I think their per capita income is almost 5 times ours. It's about $10,000, so 3 times ours. Why are things so much cheaper out there? Flats are cheaper out there. Basic food is cheaper out there, right? So we do have a severe market distortion problem. This is low-hanging fruit that you can get at. But the issue at hand that we're discussing right now is GST. Now, GST was complex. It had to be complex because, look, the one country that got GST right in the first shot was Australia. But then they've got, 6-7 states at most, all of whom agree on basic economics. In our country, we don't have that agreement. So you needed to have a very complex document to create that consensus. The very process that we've been able to simplify it is a triumph. Can it be better? Yes. But you can't have the best in the first shot. So let's look at the positives of this. Is there room for improvement? Can it get even better? Of course it can. But that is a negotiated process. You know, a democracy is a negotiated process.
Yes.
You have a GST Council, which is a negotiated process. You can't just shove it down. Now, the problem with negotiation is it leads to lots of inefficiencies, market inefficiencies, and things like that. That's fine. So, just to focus on the GST, it's a very, very good step in the right direction. Are there other problems with the economy? Yes, but I don't think we're discussing those problems right now. We're discussing the GST.
Okay, so Moneycontrol Kharge, before I bring in Nikhil Jain and Suhail Seth once more. Moneycontrol Kharge has come out. He's, of course, the Congress president, and there's Jairam Ramesh, a Congress MP. Both of them have come out and said, key demand of state made in true spirit of cooperative federalism is the extension of compensation for another 5 years to fully protect their revenues remains unaddressed. That's one. And all states should be given compensation for a period of 5 years, considering 2024-25 as the base year, because the reduction in rates is sure to hurt their revenue. It's a good thing that even after 8 years of delay, the Modi government woke up from its deep slumber on GST and talked about rate rationalization. Then why did you agree? It's a fundamental question. Mr. Jain.
So, Rahul, a lot of points have been made in the debate so far. I want to address each one of them. First of
You
all,
please address the question. You leave that to others to do. I want to ask you a simple, straightforward question. The
Rahul,
question that I'm asking you... No, hang on, just a minute. Are you on this debate to answer the question that I pose, or randomly pick up stuff that you think you want to answer? No, let's be structured. Everyone has asked the question. I've asked them questions. They've answered this question. They haven't said, no, I want to answer...
I don't remember
some
Mr.
other chap
Seth
somewhere
answering
else.
any question about the GST.
So let me ask you very simply this. Mr. Jain, I'm asking you this. Why tack on? Why sign on if there are so many lacunas?
All right, let me answer that. First of all, let me make it very clear what if the changes that were brought in yesterday, they are a better regime than the previous GST regime that we have had. And perhaps that is why you did have a unanimous consent from all the states, and which is because we are moving towards a better system. That is not to take away from the fact that the system currently still lacks a lot. 8 years ago, when the GST was brought in, it was called the Gabbar Singh tax by the opposition, and rightly so. It was very complicated. It had 4 primary slabs. And if you actually go to the CBIC website and you include the compensation cess and the differential rate for compensation cess, you'll realize that we actually had 29 effective slab rates, because on top of the 4 primary slabs, you had a compensation of 5%, 2%, 1%, 3%, 12.5%, 12.5% plus unit amount, 21%, 89%, 96%. If you want, I can send you the entire list. 29 effective slab rates we had. What the government has now done is reduce the primary slabs from 4 to 3. And let's not say that thin goods is a different slab. That's a very judgmental and a stupid way of looking at things.
Stupid
a
way?
Maaza drink falls. Yes, I'll tell you why. Because a Maaza falls in that thin goods. So the next time you're getting an Appy Fizz or a Maaza or a Coke or a Diet Coke, remember that the government thinks that this is a thin good. So let's be very real. These
No,
are
one
three
second. There
effective
is an
primary
intent.
slabs.
No, hang on. I think you have forgotten that a Sikh population is a huge. Excuse me.
A BMW car is
Allow,
not a problem for the population.
can I, sir?
No,
can
you
I,
can't keep on interjecting me at every single step.
I just want to ask you a counter
Fortuner
question.
car or a BMW car, is that a same good? This is the same government that doesn't tire from saying we should respect the wealth creators. It is so great that we have Mr. Adani and Ambani in the country. So when Adani and Ambani go out to buy their Range Rovers and their BMWs and their Mercedes, they will be tasked in 40%
is
in
this
good.
about
No,
this is about
hang on. One second, Mr. Jain. Mr. Jain.
That you just reduced 1 slab.
I mean,
The
is Mr.
opposition
Jain
has
an
been asking you to
influencer?
reduce it to 1 or 2 slabs, right? And Rahul, how long will you keep on interjecting? Can I
I'm
please
not
make the point?
interjecting, my dear man. I'm
You were
silent.
allowing first you started interjecting, then Mr. Kohli starts interjecting. Back to the matter.
I
This is
only
the Congress
asked you a
government.
simple question. Are you in favor of people chugging tobacco, smoking, drinking copious amounts
Tobacco is
of
a whole
sugary?
other, no, tobacco
allow
is not
me-
tobacco.
Okay,
Tobacco
you don't want to speak. You don't want anyone else to speak.
Is a Fortuner a
Let
same
me-
good?
Can I
Is
ask
a
you-
BMW a same good? Is a Mercedes a same good?
Excuse me. First of all these cars, etc., that are under the 40% bracket have actually got cheaper. Do you know this?
What about-
Even Dipanshu Mohan is nodding
And
his
that's
head in
not the
agreement.
point.
They've actually got cheaper. What is wrong with
That's
you?
why I asked, where is this
What
coming
I'm saying
from?
is that you have three.
No, I'll
primary
tell you where
slabs.
this is coming from. This is coming
Rahul, you're
from.
trying to deviate from the topic. You're trying to deviate
I'm
from
not.
the
You're
topic.
the one who brought
Fact
up
is
sin
that
goods.
there
Okay,
were
anyhow,
four
just one second.
No, I'm saying that we've gone from 4 primary slabs to 3 primary slabs.
Okay.
There are about 160 countries in the world that have a GST-like system,
Okay.
and there are only 4 or 5 countries that have 4 or more slabs. And those countries are India, Pakistan, Ghana, Luxembourg, and there was one more. I don't know why the government can't reduce the number of slabs.
Okay.
The Congress asked the
Okay.
government to reduce
it
exempt
has.
sanitary napkins from GST.
Okay. Okay.
You
So-
have reduced one slab.
Okay, so let
You
me
still
now bring
have
in Suhail
28
Seth. Suhail
protected
Seth, there's
slabs.
one complaint that you hear, that it's taken long, that the Prime Minister has been urged by the opposition for years to do this because essentially it's good. Would you say that the Prime Minister could have been less tardy? Suhail Seth.
No. You know, it's very easy for people to be right in hindsight, and that's an Indian malaise. Arey, maine to pehle kaha tha. That's irrelevant. I remember when the GST bill was moved late at night by Arun Jaitley, the then finance minister who sadly passed away. At that point in time, there were many naysayers. I remember Amit Mitra, a very dear friend of mine who was then the finance minister of West Bengal. He was the only person who crossed party lines and actually supported Jaitley and said, yes, GST and tax reforms and tax easing is critical. But then you had many opposition parties. See, the problem with India's opposition, it opposes for opposition's sake. It doesn't oppose on logic or ideology most of the time. So it's fine to say, oh, he could have done it earlier. Of course, we could have done this in 1947. Why didn't we? We could have opened the markets in 1950. Why didn't we? When we became a republic, we could have opened the markets, but we became a republic of nexuses, where there was a nexus between industry and government, where you had to cozy up to government in order to get licenses. Why don't we talk about that? If going by historical precedents is what you want in order to buttress your argument when you're in the opposition, we could take things way back. Today, the states are benefiting because the states are getting an accurate share. You tell me how many states, how many prime ministers would have the courage to do what Narendra Modi's done, especially when the total bill of this GST reformation is going to be 93,000 crores. He could have easily said, sorry, I can't help it. But the government is getting involved in easing the pain, because the pain is not only on industry, Rahul, the pain is on labor. If you shut down all our apparel businesses, jewelry, gems, all of those, you're talking about almost 300,000 to 400,000 jobs going. That's a saving mechanism. You are again creating robustness in the market. You're bringing back vibrancy. And you are supporting the sectors that are made and making in India, whether it is automobiles, whether it is two-wheelers, whether it is products, agricultural products, FMCG, food products. I mean, for God's sake, you know, gratitude is something that should be offered when things are done right. And
Okay.
today is one such day.
So people say the one thing that should be done to make this even more right is to move forward to a one slab. Do you agree with that, Suhail Seth?
Ideally, there should be only 2 slabs. One slab for sinful products. You know, I'm a teetotaler, so I'm very worried that non-alcoholic beer is also being charged at 40%, but I'm irrelevant. The point I'm making is, ultimately, GST simplification is a simplification for a Rahul Shivshankar who's buying the product, and it is a simplification for the person who's making the product, including the intermediary. So I'm a great believer, the simpler it is, the better. Have 2 categories. One that is destroying human health, and the other that is the general category. I mean, you tell me, Rahul, when we have such a robust automobile business going on in India, what is the point of saying, oh, luxury cars 40%, this 18%? Not needed. But I'll tell you one thing. The beauty about Narendra Modi is he does before he talks. Unlike most people who talk before they do. This too is going to happen. And to use our famous English phrase, this too shall pass. So I do hope there'll be one slab for all product categories and one slab which will be a sin tax, whether it's on tobacco, gutka, whatever you call it.
Okay, very quickly, 30 seconds before I go across to NK Singh. Yes. Yeah, Abhijit. Yeah.
No,
in India, 100 million people have diabetes.
Yes.
136 million people are pre-diabetic. You need punitive action to prevent the consumption.
Exactly.
So first we have the consumption of sugar drinks, great. But these things are, unfortunately, our government treats it as standalone. The tax itself is not enough. There's an education campaign that is required about carbs and
That's
what
true.
kind of mix the carbs and things with. But we're still a long way.
Yeah, because there is
sugars.
economic sense. You're absolutely right in having a healthy population. Sick people are a burden on the economy. Productivity falls. We all know the concomitant impact of that, viewers. So there is an intent also been built into this GST reset, and we have to accept that at some level. Anyhow, you might think it's big brotherly and so forth, but that's the way it is.